Hello, I'm James Reynolds from the BBC World Service. This is The Global Story. The Oscars, the ultimate showcase of Hollywood pomp and pageantry. But behind the glitzy red carpet photo ops and tearful acceptance speeches, a battle is raging for the hearts and minds of Academy Award voters. Studios and streaming services are spending tens of millions of dollars to campaign for their biggest films and brightest stars. We're asking who gets to decide who wins and who loses the Oscars. Who gets to woo the voters and are outsiders and newcomers getting left behind? With me today is Tom Brook, BBC film journalist who's been covering the Oscars since 1982. He's in Los Angeles right now, preparing to cover this year's awards ceremony. How are you, Tom?
I'm well. I'm getting ready for the Oscars, trying to learn all kinds of trivia that I need to know on the night.
Here in the studio with me is Leila, Latif, a journalist and regular contributor to BBC Arts coverage, who's also worked on awards campaigns, including Will Smith's successful bid for Best Actor in 2022. Hi, Leila.
Hi, lovely to be here.
How many Oscars have you either followed or been involved with?
Well, I grew up in Sudan, very much watching Tom's coverage of the Oscars, but I would stay up every night, I think probably from the age of about 7. I don't think I've missed one. I would kind of get up at about, I think, 2 a.m. with the time difference there and watch them all, because this was a time pre-YouTube. You had to watch them all. You had to watch Billy Crystal do his big song and dance number in order to really kind of capture the magic.
Before we get into the Oscars and the campaigns, I have a very honest question to you both. Have you ever stood in front of the mirror and delivered your own Oscars victory speech? Tom?
No, I know Kate Winslet has done that because she mentioned it in an acceptance speech. She'd held up some kind of shampoo bottle in the shower and imagined it was an Oscar statuette. But, I am self-involved and narcissistic, so I definitely have tendencies in that direction. But no, I've never fantasized about saying, so you really love me, like Sally Field did when she won the Oscar. But it's a very tempting fantasy.
I feel that I would do the antithesis of a classic Oscar speech. Like, I'm most inspired by like a Joe Pesci basically just saying thanks and walking off stage, or even like a Paul Verhoeven showing up for his own Razzie acceptance speeches. Like, I think there's nothing better than like parking your ego at the door and just not doing the kind of self-aggrandizing.
I have to confess, I've done in front of the mirror Oscar victory speeches, Nobel Prize winning speeches, Olympic gold medal, top podiums, you name it. There's something there in which I've thanked the Academy. And Leila, you've worked as an insider, no longer an observer. What's it like to be on the inside?
I mean, it's fascinating because you realize how much politics goes into any single person's Oscar campaign. I mean, I've worked on a few and hopefully we'll work on many more. Sometimes you get a last minute push because they realize that the reaction to something is good and all of a sudden they want to invest heavily in a performance because they think they've got something. And so there's a mad rush. Sometimes it's clearly so established and that it's just every kind of cog in the machine is building up to making sure that something is like classic Oscar bait and positioning it as such. And then sometimes you see the drop, where something comes out and everybody assumed that this would be like a shoe-in, and you just sort of see the sort of air drain out of it, where it's just like, oh, okay, yes, we will no longer be pushing for this. But, as a journalist, you're sort of, I've been hired to work on these Oscar campaigns, but often you're sort of tacitly doing it. Like, there'll just be a lot of offers for like talent time and, let's get lots of features on this, pushing for a lot of coverage because they know that this is something that's going to position something for an Oscar.
I'm fascinated that you're speaking about this because isn't the publicity campaign around it supposed to be a little kind of secret and, they just happen to win organically without a campaign behind them?
I think that would be a real disservice to a lot of the film industry if that's what we thought happened. There's a lot of films that don't get recognized for many, many different reasons. And a lot of those things are basically money and politics. And so, fundamentally, this isn't like where the Olympics, we're not saying who the fastest man in the world is. We're talking about favorites, but a lot of things don't win. And the reasons for that is not to do with whether or not they were worse or better. A lot of that's down to campaigns, and a lot of it's down to the kind of feeling in Hollywood at the time. And so I think if you broaden what you think an Oscar is rewarding, it actually becomes way more interesting.
Okay, here on The Global Story, we've actually on another episode looked at the intricacies of the US Electoral College in the United States. That was nothing in comparison to the intricacies of Oscar voting. So, Tom, take us behind the scenes. How does voting work in Hollywood in terms of who gets the awards?
Prior to the nominations, what happens is the actors vote to nominate actors, directors vote to nominate directors. It's interesting to know this because it helps you understand why, say, somebody like Greta Gerwig was snubbed. But at the nomination stage, that's what happens. But every Academy member can vote for Best Picture. Then once the nominations are established, most Academy members can vote for most nominees, except in certain categories like documentary feature or international feature, where you have to prove that you've seen a certain number of films.
Janet Gaynor may no longer be a household name, but she is the answer to a trivia question because she was the first ever winner of the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1929. More than 50 years later, the BBC asked her about that very first awards ceremony.
You know, people have asked me, well, were you impressed? Well, of course I was impressed. But it didn't have the build-up that it does now with the nominations and all the excitement. And, of course, I don't think the Academy knew that it was going to mean so much at the box office. I don't think really that that's what it was formed for at all. It was formed to purely honor the actors and actresses and the other people.
Janet Gaynor, the winner from 1929, who won without the build-up. Leila, you can't do that anymore. There has to be build-up to win.
Yeah, there has to be. And there's all these kind of awards precursors. So you'll get something like a few years ago, there was just this very set in stone set where it was going to be Laura Dern and Renee Zellweger and Brad Pitt and Joaquin Phoenix. And they won everything. The kind of this like quartet would just go from award ceremony to award ceremony.
Did they run out of things to say?
They definitely did, which is why I think Joaquin Phoenix went into kind of like the ethics of dairy farming in his in his Oscar speech. But yeah, sometimes they become kind of self-perpetuating myths where we just establish quite early on who the winners are, and then, you know, it's sort of fait accompli by the time the Oscars start.
Walk us through then the process of launching an Oscars campaign.
So the first thing that you do is you figure out where you're going to be positioning yourself in the calendar. The best time is normally considered autumn. That often means a Venice Film Festival launch. That has become sort of the place where a lot of the Oscar winners now position themselves.
I could do that, yeah. I'm free in the autumn.
You could free.
Yeah, so that's easily clear. I clear the diary.
Yeah, your sort of Power of the Dog, your King Richard, which was at Telluride, Toronto, around them. There's this kind of period, sweet spot in autumn, which is like Venice, Telluride, Toronto, SFX, where a lot of these things get launched. Then you start your marketing campaign where you're going to kind of be getting a lot of press for these people. You're going to try and single out the people that you think are your big contenders. So let's say something like Oppenheimer, which admittedly was a little bit earlier in the calendar. It's a huge cast, and you know that you're going to split the vote if you have too many people going for Best Supporting Actor. So you pick one and you send Robert Downey Jr. out to do as much Best Supporting stuff to kind of establish himself as like the one, if that makes sense. Then you start paying money. you start paying for sponsored concert, the sort of thing that I do. And then by the time you get to, I think normally end of November, early December, you start sending out swag.
What is the swag? Who gives it? Who gets it?
So we're not talking like in the golden days of the Golden Globes where like they would fly you to Paris. It might be jumpers, it might be tote bags, it might be water bottles, copies of the script, vinyl of the soundtrack, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's not going to entirely convince your mind.
And it goes to the voters.
I'm a very lowly person in the whole Academy Awards machine. I'm a member of the Critics' Choice group, and I get loads of swag starting in about November. And as you might gather by what I'm about to say, I'm a total hypocrite. I mean, it's like rub it. I mean, the politically correct part of myself is, I say, how can these production companies spend all this money? I mean, it's very lavish. I get wine, chocolate, all kinds of weird items of clothing. And, as you're saying, it does make you think about the film, but it's a total waste of resources. But then I have to say, I love the chocolate, so I just go ahead and think, okay, chocolate, will I vote for Maestro? No, I hope to goodness it doesn't influence me.
Tom, given that you've been on the circuit since 1982, have you seen the campaigns and the swag to a certain extent? Have you seen that all change and get more overwhelming or more professional?
Yes, it's definitely become more professional. And I think that, Harvey Weinstein manufactured this kind of whispering campaign against his rival at the Oscars, which was Steven Spielberg Saving Private Ryan. And I mean, you had this, and he used a lot of people to lobby and pressure Academy members, and it heralded a new age in terms of campaigning, one that personally I don't think is healthy. But as a result, Shakespeare in Love won big. Gwyneth Paltrow won big. I think people will remember her being very emotional. And Judi Dench won and she was only in the film for about 7 or 8 minutes.
Is it the studio who picks which actors to go for, or might it just be the actor who says, you know what, I was really good in that film, I think it's my turn?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's people that just, shine in small roles. Thinking of Ke Huy Quan, I don't think that was when A24 was making that anybody thought ooh, great, that is going to be our Oscar gold. Sometimes people do establish themselves, and that's when you get that mad scramble afterwards to kind of position these people as the one to watch. But but these things are still decided. And when it comes to kind of larger stars, these things are in their contracts.
Does that create a system in which newcomers are left out a little bit?
Oh, yes. No, certainly, for sure. There's, connections are everything. So even, there's the people at the top who are making the decision about what is Oscar worthy. And those tend to be people that are a little bit on the conservative side and kind of want to, I suppose, maintain the status quo. But then even when it comes to sort of organic things, who has the sort of people that they will kind of praise, because a lot of it comes down to social media engagement now and amplifying certain voices and stuff. So I think in a strange way, it's gotten harder.
What is Oscar worthy?
There's kind of established ideas around what is Oscar worthy or Oscar bait. Biopics do extremely well if you're able to, disappear into the transformation, into a transformation of a beloved figure. That's a good one. Weirdly, playing the Joker is
playing the Joker's pretty good, isn't it?
That's pretty good. I mean, they're basically kind of they're about 70%.
Yeah, that's a good hit rate. If you're Jack Nicholson, you're like, yeah, come on, I need a back award for that.
And then I think there's when it comes to the films themselves, World War II is always a safe bet, but also films about the magic of movie making.
Okay.
At the end
that appeals to the voters.
Yes, at the end of the day, they're quite self-aggrandizing as events go. And I think we all do love to kind of, even myself tangentially being in this industry, do love to kind of have a bit of a boost about why what we do matters so much.
The Oscars have been criticised for many years for not being diverse among the voters and also among the nominees and the winners picked by the voters. Leila, how is that being addressed in terms of the voting body and the winners?
Well, there's been a big attempt to expand the votership, the sort of people that get included, and that's a slow process. I mean, they've made strides, and I think that you've seen that in terms of the sorts of films that have won of late, but there's still a kind of core body and a bit of a groupthink that I think you can see a lot of the time in the nominees. I'm fascinated that the same awards body that gave Moonlight Best Picture one year gave gave it to Green Book the following year, that we literally did like the most incredible masterpiece of like black cinema, and then we did White Savior the next year. And what a metaphor that is. Like, you know, these things don't exist in a bubble, and I don't think you can entirely put it to kind of new minority members to kind of save the Oscars. You actually, I think, have to challenge the minds of, you know, the status quo of the majority of people that are not only voting for these things, but also the people that are deciding who the push goes for as to who is, you know, at the forefront of the conversation for the Oscars.
Leila, it's been fantastic to have you right here in the studio. And to anyone listening, not watching, we have these sort of mini Oscars with us. How many do we have? About 7? We do. You're collecting them all at the moment. Go on, do your speech.
In the words of Joe Pesci, it's an honor. Thanks.
My speech, I'd like to thank the Academy. I don't know if I deserve this, but I'll take it anyway. Tom, we haven't couriered you a mini Oscar, but would you like to deliver your farewell Oscar speech?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody who I've ever met in my life who has given me a little bit of love and made me feel better about myself, enabling me to go forward.
Tom, many thanks.
Thank you.
Leila, many thanks.
Pleasure.
And thank you for being with us. If you liked our episode and want to hear more of the global story, do find us wherever you get your podcasts. Do subscribe to make it a bit easier. And do, if you want, leave a comment below. Goodbye.